Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are literally generating a detailed explainer based on the slides you see here, moving from theoretical minimums to absolute engineering reality. We're going to take the numbers right off the page and discover together how real-world variables dictate what actually goes on your roof or mounting rack.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll hit 1. The one-to-one myth. 2. Inverter versus PV power. 3. Calculating theoretical minimums. 4. The engineering reality check. And finally, 5. The final sizing funnel.
All right, Section 1. The one-to-one myth, exposing the fundamental flaw in beginner off-grid design. Let's just tackle the absolute most pervasive misunderstanding in off-grid solar right out of the gate.
So many beginners glance at a spec sheet, spot a 6 kilowatt off-grid inverter, and boom, they make a logical but completely false assumption. They think, hey, I've got a 6 kilowatt inverter, so I just need exactly 6 kilowatts of solar panels, right? Nope, not at all. As this visual proves, off-grid systems are absolutely not sized by matching components one-to-one.
Moving on to Section 2. Inverter versus PV power. Understanding the two distinct roles in your system. To really get why that one-to-one myth fails so spectacularly, we have to separate the inverter's job from the PV array's job.
Here is the absolute crux of the issue. We're dealing with two totally different beasts here. Your inverter, it handles instantaneous power in kilowatts, basically the peak load muscle your system can flex at any given split second. But your PV array, that dictates the cumulative energy yield over the entire day, which we measure in kilowatt hours.
So that 6 kilowatt inverter rating doesn't just automatically mean you need exactly 6 kilowatt peak of solar modules. It's like comparing your car's top speed to the size of its gas tank. One is all about instantaneous electrical muscle, while the other is about long-term daily energy gathering.
And here's the kicker. Your PV array is essentially working a double shift. It's not just powering your house. It has to simultaneously supply those active electrical loads during the daylight hours and, at the exact same time, crank out enough excess energy to fully recharge your battery bank from the night before. If you just naively match the inverter's power rating, you guarantee you won't have the overall energy to pull off both of those jobs.
Let's hit Section 3, calculating theoretical minimums, doing the baseline math for off-grid survival. Now that we know exactly what the panels have to accomplish, let's step through the literal equations to find our absolute baseline minimum.
Okay, let's do the math. We have to start with our baseline daily consumption, which for our example system is 8.5 kilowatt hours. But, the real world is full of friction, so we factor in a system efficiency of roughly 75%. Divide 8.5 by 0.75, and we arrive at a required PV energy of 11.3 kilowatt hours per day.
Now you might be wondering, why the massive 25% penalty? Well, look at this gauntlet of unavoidable drains. We're losing energy through the MPPT controller, the DC and AC cables, the chemical resistance of battery cycling, the inverter itself, and even just high module temperatures. All those cascading losses mean we have to generate 11.3 kilowatt hours in the real world just to squeeze out that baseline 8.5 to our actual appliances.
Next up, we need to factor in how much usable sunlight we're actually getting. So we divide that required energy by our peak sun hours. Just as a refresher, that's the equivalent hours per day where solar irradiance hits exactly 1,000 watts per square meter. For a solid, reasonable baseline in our design, we'll assume an average of 4 hours per day.
Let's run that final bit of division. 11.3 kilowatt hours of required energy divided by those 4 peak sun hours lands us at an exact PV array size of 2.825 kilowatt peak. But listen, I want to be crystal clear about something right here. While the math perfectly balances out to 2.825 on paper, designing your whole off-grid system around this result is strictly a theoretical minimum. It is literally just the mathematical floor of what's possible. Which brings us to Section 4, the engineering reality check, surviving the elements and real-world conditions. Let's apply a massive reality check filter to see exactly how this theoretical math holds up against actual harsh weather. Because here is the truth. In theory, that 2.8 kilowatt array works flawlessly, assuming you have absolutely perfect weather, the ultimate sun angle, spotless panels, and not a single cloud in the sky. But in engineering reality, come on. We're facing severely diminished winter sun, random clouds that just murder your power output, incredibly low morning yields, and that constant ticking clock to rapidly recharge the batteries while the sun is actually up.
And that right there is exactly why off-grid systems require mandatory PV oversizing. If you're on-grid, the utility company is your infinite backup battery, so moderate sizing is totally fine. But an off-grid cabin, you have zero safety net. You absolutely must oversize the PV array to guarantee rapid battery charging, recovery after a string of cloudy days, and total, uncompromised autonomy.
Therefore, we take that theoretical minimum of 2.8 and we completely toss it out the window. Instead, we target an optimal zone of around 6.0 kilowatt peak for 6 kilowatt inverter. By jumping up to this target, we lock in excellent charge reserves, drastically improve our deep winter performance, and ensure much shallower battery cycling, which, by the way, is going to massively extend the life of your very expensive battery bank.
Let's wrap it up with Section 5, the final sizing funnel, turning math into physical hardware. How do we translate that highly practical 6 kilowatt peak target into actual hardware you can bolt to a roof? We use the sizing funnel.
Step 1. We grab our spec. Let's say a modern 550-watt panel. Step 2. The calculation. 6,000 watts divided by 550 gets us 10.9 panels. Step 3. We round that up to 11 panels. But then, we hit Step 4, which is a crucial engineering override. We bump it up to 12. Why? Well, 11 is just an incredibly awkward prime number when it comes to string configurations. You literally can't divide it easily into balanced parallel strings. So purposefully bumping the total up to 12 panels isn't wasting money at all. It gives us that beautiful optimal stringing symmetry for the actual wiring.
And that little bit of engineering finesse establishes our final system at exactly 6.6 kilowatt peak. This size is a game changer. It guarantees those morning and evening reserves, effortlessly eats cloud cover drop-offs, protects the battery chemistry with rapid recharges, and most importantly, it keeps the entire system alive and kicking through the absolute darkest days of deep winter.
All right, so locking in this physical array size is a massive, massive victory for our design. We've successfully moved from a dangerous theoretical myth to rock-solid engineering reality. But it leaves us staring down an entirely new, incredibly important engineering puzzle for the installation.
We've got 12 large panels, but how do we actually connect them to the inverter? Do we wire them in one massive long string or break them into two parallel strings? What is the inverter's MPPT voltage range, and are we going to risk blowing right past the open circuit voltage limit on a freezing cold January morning? That is the MPPT puzzle, and it's exactly the kind of critical detail that separates a working system from a broken one. So, based on everything we've just unpacked today, how would you solve this wiring challenge?